Hey guys, and welcome back to Mad About Skin. Today we are drawing a line under and finishing off the Purito Sunscreen saga, scandal, drama, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday I uploaded a video around some of the controversy surrounding the Purito Unscented Centella Green Level Sunscreen, one of my absolute holy grails, but under independent testing it turned out instead of being the SPF 50 that Purito claimed, it actually came out as an average of an SPF 19. Everyone was kind of shook by the results of that because we've all come to almost expect and to be able to trust these companies and know that the testing that they do is robust enough that we can believe the claims that are on the bottle. In that video, I did say that I believe passionately that all individuals and companies deserve the right to respond and the right to return comment on these things. And I said that once Purito release any statements on this, I will cover it on the channel just to be, fully fair and open and let everybody have their say so we can see both sides of the story. So that's very much what this video is today. Shortly after I uploaded that video yesterday, Purito actually released their full statement. It's quite a wordy and lengthy statement, so I will leave a link to it below because I do think it's worth checking out the whole statement, though I can't cover it all in this video. The key elements of it is Purito said they actually contracted out the formulation and the design of this product to a third-party laboratory. That's not that shocking. Most beauty and skincare companies do contract out their formulations and the manufacturing of their products. That's just because these labs often hold expertise, which a company can't possibly hold all in one place, so they contract it out to kind of the best people that are there to design, formulate and manufacture the product. They contract this out to a set of specifications which then this laboratory met and delivered back the results, the testing and the independent data analysis to Purito. They then presented that evidence, reviewed it and then presented it to the Korean Federal Drug Agency, who could then allow them to market the product as it stood. This was peer reviewed by the drug agency and also Purito, and so they took what data was provided by that lab as the robust testing that was needed to be able to bring this product to market. At this point, Purito didn't do any of their own independent testing. They took, again, what was said by that lab as fact based on the data and the analysis that was provided. Again, that's not super shocking. Whilst all companies can do their own independent verification, once you contract to a lab with very set specifications, that creates an element of trust and a bond between you and that lab, which is what Purito had in this instance, and they then sent that data back. Obviously, there's been an undercurrent of doubt around this product for quite a while, and so Purito, on the back of that doubt, said that they then started to independently analyse the product. They went out to an independent laboratory, handed over batches of the product and said, please could you independently review this on our behalf to check the quality of the formulation and that it meets the SPF which we're advertising on the product. These tests do take some time to come back. Just for a little bit of a background, when you do these SPF tests, they go through sets and series of tests. So it's not just one test, it goes through a series of these and the data is reported at each set. So you can get an idea of how the product's performing at the first set, but you really need to see it through the whole process to know categorically what the SPF value is at the end. They were in the middle, somewhere in the middle of this process when the Inky Decoder released their data, which had been through a similar set of testing to show that it was actually a SPF 19. On the back of that, and Purito aren't contesting the findings of the Inky Decoder study. They're happy with that and they're not contesting it at this point, and they said that on the back of that they're withdrawing all their products from market because their own independent analysis, whilst it's not complete and it's halfway through the process, is showing substandard results when compared to what's advertised on the product. So they've withdrawn from sale temporarily the Centella Unscented Sunscreen and also the Purito Comfy Water Sunblock. So they don't have any active sunscreens on sale at the moment. That's kind of where we stand. So now for what I think when it comes to this. There's two ways you can look at it, and there's two ways that I'd like to look at it. And in the spirit of positivity, I always like to start with the optimistic and the positive element first. So if you were to look at this in a charitable and optimistic way, I would say actually Purito have done exactly the right thing. They've removed the products from sale while they continue their own testing and their own investigations. This is really important because we often see companies, skincare companies, actually going on the defensive, shouting shouting down the people that have dared to challenge their product, shouting down anyone online that dares to draw out some criticism of a product, and just responds really negatively. They've actually responded in a positive way to say, okay, we accept the findings of this Inky Decode study, which has been fully released, so the data sets have been fully released and can be reviewed. We accept the findings of that, and actually, honestly, our own studies were starting to show elements of that, though they weren't by any means complete. They've removed the product from sale, and they have issued a full statement explaining how the situation occurred. So from that perspective, I think that's a very positive development. It's been handled in a very professional and just a really good way, and this is really a way that I think companies should be responding to criticism and responding to any scientific data which is released about their products, rather than going on the defensive. So from that perspective, I think a lot has been done right. If I was feeling less charitable and was being a bit more critical of Purito, I would say companies do have a history and a tendency to, when they start to maybe have some doubts around their product, they can commission some independent testing. I believe that really the product should be withdrawn the second you have that doubt about it, especially when that product's a sunscreen. It's okay, well, it's not okay, but I can understand how, if a claim on an anti-wrinkle cream says it's going to reduce your fine lines and wrinkles by 30%, but someone actually challenged it and said, actually, it's only going to deliver a 25% reduction. Okay, it's still false advertising, but it's not going to have the same meaningful impact as if people are using sun protection which isn't giving their skin the protection they need. That has much more significant impacts. And so I think Purito should have withdrawn the product the second they had their own personal doubts. Obviously, the data sets do come gradually when they're doing their own independent analysis, so the withdrawal should have happened at least at that first stage, because by their own admission, those independent studies were showing that the SPF wasn't living up to their own claims. The second that first data set came out, they should have issued a statement and withdrawn the products from the market. Instead, they've allowed it to sell, they've allowed people to purchase, and potentially waste their money if they're not going to continue using the product and use substandard sun protection for their needs throughout that product cycle. So that, I think, isn't the right way of approaching it, and I wish they'd done it earlier. Also, whilst I appreciate what Purito are saying around the issue lies with the lab, they were given the data, as any company would be, from that lab, and they used that to create their own marketing, their own packaging, and their own branding around this product. They also provided that to Korean agencies to have it verified and suitable for sale. So they did all of that right, and they're saying their fault actually lies with that data which came from the lab. They're investigating that. Potentially it's a lab error, potentially it's a batch error. There's a lot of things that it could be, and that they're going back to the lab to investigate that. However, my issue with that is you can absolutely outsource your production, your manufacturing, and your formulation, but I don't think as a company you can outsource your responsibilities. Just because you hand over the formulation, the testing, and the data analysis to another company to create on your behalf, you still have a contract with the consumer, with the person that's purchasing your product. I just don't think you can, subcontract out your responsibilities to the consumer who's purchasing your product and ultimately paying your wages and providing you with your profit margins. And so I would like to see a little bit more ownership, particularly around, okay, it might be the fault of the lab, but ultimately you bring a product to market and you have to own that product. So that's two ways that you could potentially look at it. And I'd love to know actually what your thoughts are on this response, and read the response in full, which I have linked below. And I'd love to know what your thoughts and feelings are on it. In terms of whether I'm personally going to continue to support Purito and purchase from them, I'm going to take a brief pause from the brand. I do think there's a lot more investigative work to go on as to how these substandard SPFs were able to be brought to market, and how that data, I use the term substandard, but obviously below what was the advertised amount. So where did that disconnect happen? Was it a case of willful negligence on one person's part, or was it just an error or an accident? All these things need to come out, and that will really shape, I think, the narrative going forward. So I'm taking a pause from Purito until that comes through. Ultimately, for me, there's a lot of things that go into making a skincare purchase. I want to see some really good protective levels in terms of an SPF. I want to see great ethics behind the brand, and I want to see all of that really coming together. If this lab or if somewhere there's been a disconnect between the lab and it reaching its end state and it's not living up to the expectations as advertised. There's some other implications. You know, I love Purito because we're a cruelty-free brand. Now, I have no reason to doubt that the product I'm using is cruelty-free, but because there's been that disconnect in another element of the manufacturing, it has just led doubts to creep into my mind around things like that, and it just hasn't really left a lot of trust with me. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with Purito products, and if you want to continue to use them, you absolutely can. This is a very specific incident with their SPFs. There's no data or science to back up that any of the other products from the brand are substandard or that there's an issue with the way they're marketed. So we'd just like to put that out there. But for me, I think it's just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, and I won't be personally purchasing for Purito in the near future. That may absolutely change, and I'd love to know your thoughts below. So guys, I'd love to know your thoughts below, and leave me a comment and let me know what you think. We're drawing a line under this. It seems like a bit of a negative episode. I think a lot of people have been shaken by it and had their faith in brands shaken. So tomorrow, tune in for my fabulous, amazing, guaranteed, trusted skincare and sunscreen skincare recommendations. There's so many that you'll love in that, and you know that they've been independently tested and verified, so you can believe everything that's on that packet. So tune in tomorrow for that, and wherever you are in the world, guys, stay safe, stay well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye.